In the Bible, we're commanded to love God with all of our heart, soul, strength, and mind. Our love for God is to be holistic. It's to be a fully orbed love for a God who is worthy of our complete devotion. You know, when you think about churches, sometimes they get imbalanced. You'll have hands churches, and those are social justice churches. And we need to do social justice. God's about social justice. But a church that's just social justice won't look much different than the philanthropy of the world. Then you'll get heart churches, and they're very much about relationships and connecting and community. And that's really great. But that can cause us to become ingrown and lose sight of being on purpose and on mission. And then you'll get head churches, and these are churches that love doctrine and philosophy and apologetics, and they'll be focused on the life of the mind. But the passion that Jesus would have for us is that we're not a head church to the exclusion of a heart church, to the exclusion of a hands church, but rather we're fully orbed in our approach to ministry and our love to God. That we should value the life of the mind, we should value the life of the heart, and we should value doing ministry with our hands to the community. I'm thankful that your pastor, that Conway, has recognized the importance of apologetics, and he's given me this opportunity to just talk with you about this topic of loving God with all of your mind. I think it's more natural for some people, in particular the Gen Z generation. They love activism. They grew up in homes where they heard lots about words and talk, and they're like, man, we got to get with it. We got to get out there and live it. My fear sometimes is because we're not doing a lot of thinking, that we don't recognize that a lot of the Gen Z's activism is being driven by postmodern philosophy or certain Marxist expressions of philosophy. And so we have to inform our activism and understand the kind of philosophy that is driving our activism. We have to be more thoughtful. We have to slow down. We have to be constructive. We have to think. And so I think that apologetics has a real role to play in loving God with all of our mind. I look at apologetics as the way that I love a person enough with my mind to take the time to cultivate knowing why it is I believe what I believe, so that I could always be prepared to give an answer when somebody asks me to give the reason for the hope that is within me. That's in 1 Peter 3:15. Always be prepared to give an apologia, an apologetic, a defense for your faith when people ask you to give the reason for the hope that is within you. And so for me, my story is this. I shared that I struggled with addiction and alcoholism and promiscuity, and I suffered in school. The only thing I feel like I really had going for me is I was a gifted athlete. I played college baseball. I played baseball growing up. It was the one thing that kept me from really probably just going off the complete edge, was being an athlete. I got through school sometimes because coaches would just let me pass. I was the senior sitting in classes with sophomores. I never remember reading a book until I was 21 years of age from cover to cover, except for Judy Blume's Freckle Juice as a kid, and another time I got sent home from elementary school for gluing a book together. I wanted to go to the Marine Corps out of high school. You needed a 31 on the ASVAB. The first time I took it, I failed. I had to wait a month. I took it again, I failed. I waited 6 months, and I failed again. You know what I got the third time? A 27. I couldn't get into the United States Marine Corps. To be a United States Army, the lowest grade you could get on the ASVAB was a 28. I couldn't even get in as an infantryman in the United States Army. I was so uneducated because of my party lifestyle and the choices that I made. And so they gave me an opportunity to go to get a physical, and they were going to give me a waiver on my 27, and I went and I failed the physical. Well, I got sober, and I fell in love with learning, and I fell in love with reading. But the reason I fell in love with reading is because I fell in love with God. It was like the world opened up to me, and I knew that if I'm going to know this God that saved me, I'm going to have to fall in love with reading. And so I started reading because I wanted to know this God who saved me. And I started studying and learning, and I would go off to Arkansas to change my people, places, and playthings, to get out of California to, I was just around a lot of bad influences there. And so I went off to Arkansas. There I'd meet my wife. We started dating. I went to Chili's to go take a test to be a waiter, and I couldn't walk in because I did not think I could learn the menu. I remember coming back to her house, and she thought, man, you're going to have to figure something out here. I mean, if we're going to be dating and you can't take a test to learn a menu at Chili's. Well, then I started going out and sharing the gospel at Bible college with 50 to 100 people a week, studying the answers to their questions, learning so that I could love them better. I was paying people through Bible college to type my papers because I didn't know how to type. Then when I got out of seminary, out of Bible college, my in-laws got me a laptop. I took that laptop and I taught myself to type. On the front end of Dallas Seminary, I typed so slow, I could hardly want to keep my laptop open because I was embarrassed because people were typing so fast around me. But I started budding as an academic while I was at Dallas Theological Seminary. By the time I got out of there, I was flourishing academically. I was typing, I have no idea, it could be 100 plus words a minute. And I got out and I went and planted a church. And I waited a year and then I jumped into my first doctorate program in apologetics. And I started studying apologetics. And then I started really flourishing as an academic. I graduated summa cum laude, highest honors. Then I took about another year off, and then I jumped into another doctoral program at one of the most prestigious universities in the world in England, and had the opportunity to go and study at one of the most prestigious departments of philosophy of religion, second, right behind Oxford, even ahead of Cambridge. The University of Birmingham is the philosophy of religion department I studied in. And I just finished up a PhD in moral philosophy. Why do I tell you that story? Well, I want you to understand the trajectory. I was a guy that was totally uneducated, couldn't get into the military, wouldn't even go take a test to be a waiter at Chili's, had to pay people to type my papers, had to be reluctantly shy around people typing in the early part of seminary. And then God blessed my faithfulness and gave me a national platform called the 1 Minute Apologists, where today we've got thousands upon thousands of subscribers and some 1,200 videos. Now I sit on a nationally syndicated radio show program, and #1 most listened to Christian radio show in Southern California. It's a call-up program where people put me in the hot seat and they ask questions about the Bible. I never thought I could do this. I never thought that I could give an answer for my faith. I was so unchurched when I got saved that when they were talking about the forefathers, it took me months to realize that for is spelled F-O-R-E, not F-O-U-R. I was looking for the fourth one. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and who? I was so unchurched that when I went to church, if the pastor said turn to the book of Romans, I'd think I didn't bring the book of Romans. I brought my Bible. And so all this to say, if God could take someone like me and teach me Hebrew and teach me Greek and give me 2 doctorate degrees and help me to be an apologist with a national platform who is totally uneducated, then He can do it for you. But my passion for education came because I had a passion to know the God who saved me. It came out of an appreciation for His grace in my life. And then it came out of a passion to help people to know that this God that I believe in is true. And let me share with you why it is that I believe He's true. Apologetics is a great tool, and I hope that you will consider loving God with all your mind. The last thing I'd say is consider looking at Audible. I taught myself to be a speed listener. I've listened to probably 600 books in the last 6 years, many of them at triple speed and many of the greatest classics throughout history. You can listen quickly. You can absorb. Don't waste your life. Love God with all of your heart, soul, strength, and mind.